Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC or Credentialed Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Apparently, I have a lot of things to say right now about this difficult economy, because my last podcast episode was about a difficult economy, and the podcast episode before that was about creating coaching packages that actually work. And so we're talking about money, and we're talking about structure, we're talking about all this stuff. And today we're going to talk about growing a coaching business in a difficult economy. And I'm going to talk about something that does not get said out loud very often in a public way in the coaching community. It often gets talked about behind closed doors, privately amongst coaches. And it's this: you're doing the work, you're showing up, you're posting online, or you're emailing your newsletter, you're having conversations, you're refining your messaging, you're doing all the things you've been told to do, and you're noticing something. Inquiries have slowed down, maybe to a trickle. You're getting nervous. There's this thing that's happening for you in the silence. And it starts really subtly. Maybe you check your email a little more often than usual, or you have a client who says that they're ready to stop coaching for a while because they're doing okay. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, I thought we were talking about some rich stuff that, could have done a little more. Is it that we don't want to work together anymore? Is it that there's a money issue? You start noticing when you're putting it out there about your group program and it gets fewer responses. And so that's when usually you start rereading your website copy. You start going, is it what I'm saying? Am I not being clear enough? That's when you start comparing yourself to other coaches. And by the way, I have a Craft of Coaching episode on not comparing yourself to other coaches. You look at what other coaches are doing, though. You try to figure out what they have that you don't. You make a small tweak here, small tweak there, and you wait. And the waiting has a particular quality to it. It's not neutral waiting. It's loaded. Because every day that passes without an inquiry isn't just a quiet day. It starts to feel like a data point. And you start to worry. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe you're not cut out for this. Can coaching be sustainable? Maybe you were just lucky for a while. And this can get really insidious. And this is the type of thing that actually scares coaches from even getting into coach training and becoming a coach. Because they start going, is it possible in an economy like this? Are people spending money on coaching? And I actually addressed that question in my last couple of coaching or Craft of Coaching podcast episodes. But if you didn't listen to those episodes, I want to speak to what you might be doing. And we're going to revisit some of the same themes in this episode. Because if you start to respond to all of that by pulling back, because it feels risky to put yourself out there. Or you overcorrect and you start throwing everything at the wall and you're trying to come up with 5 new offers and you're posting on social media 25 times a day and it's not driven by strategy, it's total panic. It gets a little overwhelming. And you might be telling yourself that you're just recalibrating, but really you're hiding. Because underneath all of this is this question that you might not really be sitting with. Can I make this work? This whole thing, the choice you made to build a business that matters to you in a world that sometimes feels indifferent to what matters to you. And I'm not going to give you a pep talk about that. I'm not going to give you a simple list of 10 things to do when business is slow. I want to give you a real answer. So let's get into it. We're going to get into what's actually happening in this slower market. There's a big difference between a market condition and a personal failing. And if you conflate those two things, you will lose ground. Second, I'm going to talk today about how to do a business audit, especially when you're already emotionally activated, because that's genuinely hard, okay? You got to get out of that emotional activation. Third, what do you do in a slow season? Because here's the thing about running a business, and I have been doing this coaching thing since 2006, so there's a lot of presidential administrations that have happened, not a lot, but a couple of cycles have happened economically since 2006. So there are going to be slow seasons. And if you're considering getting into coaching and having a business for yourself, you should know that. You should know that, yes, there will be peaks, there will be valleys. That's just part of being a business owner. So what do you do in a slow season? Because give up is not the option you should be turning to right now. And fourth, let's talk about how all of this translates directly into your coaching room, because clients navigating this is something that's going to come up too. Your clients are probably finding that this difficult economy is impacting them in different ways. So first, let's start with market conditions not being a personal failing, because that's actually where the most damage happens. When the economy slows down, and if you feel that pinch in your coaching business, it's really common for coaches to go to an internal place, to assume that the slowdown is about them, to assume that if you don't have clients, it's about you suck, your messaging sucks, you're not a great coach, you're not really ready to do this business thing. And yeah, sometimes you got to look at some of that there. But the reflexive move to self-blame before examining the external landscape is inaccurate and costly. So let's get into the inaccurate part, all right? The ICF and PricewaterhouseCoopers has done a global coaching study. And this is coming from 2023. And what they have found is that the coaching industry has continued to grow globally. Continued to grow. So if you're worried about a slowdown in your specific corner of the coaching world, consider this might have very little to do with you. It might be that as the current administration continues to do what they do with the war in Iran and the weird stock market calls that, interestingly, people are betting on who might have insider information, and then they get more money. And then with the rise of AI and the potential AI bubble, all of this could have nothing to do with you and your copy and the quality of your coaching. And there are going to be certain aspects of the coaching market that are going to cycle in and out and have more coaches and perhaps a saturation of coaches and fewer coaches. And there's going to be more growth potential in those areas. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that there will always be peaks and valleys for you as an entrepreneur, which is what you are if you go into business for yourself as a coach. And you might have to look around and go, okay, where are some ways I can diversify? I'll just give an example for myself. I've moved into far more HR, executive, and organizational coaching as a result of how tight things have been economically over the years. I'm still doing the same work. I'm still helping people to figure out fear patterns. I'm still doing leadership coaching. It's still the Courage Habit ethos. The Courage Habit is my book, in case you are unaware. I'm still doing all the same things. I'm just applying it to a different audience. So maybe that's what you need to do, because the first thing that happens is people go, oh, what if I'm in the niche that's really saturated? Well, then the messaging might just need to be applied to a different audience. Also, you want to think about how consumer behavior during economic downturns tends to happen. Here's something that might surprise you. When there is an economic downturn, and this is consistent with the research, people don't actually stop wanting the things that coaching provides. They don't stop wanting clarity, direction, growth, support. What they do, however, is they delay decisions. Sales cycles get longer. The person who would have said yes after reading your sales page one time is now reading your sales page, joining your newsletter, waiting until they receive 3 newsletters from you, listening to a few episodes of your podcast and then reaching out to you to say, I'd like to start coaching. Which means that if your response when things are a little harder is to fade out and post less, guess what? That person might not be building the awareness of what you offer in a way that actually makes it viable for them. And here's the other thing too that I think people in this technological moment tend to forget. It is still easier to build a business today, as I record this in 2026, than it was in, say, the 80s or 90s. Think about it. If you had a business in the 80s or 90s, this is going to stretch way back for some of my Gen Z coaches here. If you had a business in the 80s or 90s, do you know how you marketed yourself? There was this big book called the Yellow Pages. I'm not spinning a wild fable, but I do feel a little bit almost like, gather around, children, let me tell you how it used to be many in a land long, long ago. No, really, I'm not kidding you. There was a book, a printed book that was so thick it probably could have injured someone if it was thrown at them. It was called the Yellow Pages. Businesses would pay to get their business name and number listed in the Yellow Pages. And then if someone had a problem with the specific thing that your business offered, they would go look through the Yellow Pages and find your name and number and call the number. That was how you got clients. Or mailers. So people would mail things, coupons and such. And mailers, of course, are still out there, although I don't think the Yellow Pages exists anymore. I haven't seen one in quite some time. But mailers are still out there. So that was the other way that you did it in the 80s or 90s to build a business. They would send out a mailer. So you'd have to spend all the money on graphic design and printing and mailing it out, the postage, and then just hope somebody doesn't just chuck it into the recycle bin. Of course, in the 80s and 90s, recycle bins were not all over the place the way they are now, but you know what I'm saying. And just hope that somebody wouldn't throw away the mailer and would actually be motivated to call you based on the mailer. So I'm here to tell you right now, when you can go onto Facebook or Google and spend $50 on ads, that's so much easier than what people used to have to do to run a business. One social media post that goes viral that you don't even have to pay for could net you 10 clients. So again, consumer behavior during economic downturns does not mean that people no longer value coaching. It means your sales cycle gets longer. It means people pull back a bit to wait and see. That's not a rejection of your work. It's a rational consumer response to uncertainty. And that distinction matters because it changes what you do next. If you make the slowdown all about you and you must suck and, oh, now's the moment when suddenly you're like, I got to redo my website, or you stop following up on social media because you're like, oh, I don't know if they'll want to be my client anyway, then the work is internal to your business. It's not about the economy. So coaches who skip straight to "it must be me" and start overhauling everything in a panic, or think that, oh, coaching can't work, I can't make it work, you're dismantling things that were working right before they would have started paying off. So before you change anything, the first question is, what do you actually know about the economy and what's happening right now, as opposed to what are you afraid is happening right now? All right, now let's get into how you can audit yourself. And this can be a place where a lot of coaches get stuck because you're trying to figure out, all right, I want to audit myself. I want to kind of get a sense of, is it me? Is there something that I need to do differently? Let me do a business audit. When you're doing a business audit and you're already emotionally activated, it's genuinely difficult. The data is getting filtered through the fear. The data starts getting filtered through the fear, and fear distorts how you view a situation, how you assess what a problem is. You start thinking that a single negative comment is a pattern. You start thinking that a reasonable conversion rate, even if it wasn't what you used to get or what some other coach is getting, you think it means you're a failure. I will never forget, as a for instance, when I learned that open rates for email are quite low, actually. Like, depending on the industry, open rates can be anything between 15 and 30%. I remember learning that at a time when I thought that like I think it was like 40s, I think I had like a 46% open rate. And I was like, oh my God, not even half of all people that I send emails to via my newsletter are opening anything. And then I found out that industry average is like 15 to 30%. Well, then I felt really great about the 47% rate. By the way, in case you're starting to compare yourself and your open rates now, that's not my open rate anymore. Email open rates are down. Okay. So it's like, you see what I'm saying? You got to separate the facts from the story. And this is something that you have to navigate in your own business, and your clients probably experience something like this too. When they're afraid about money, how do you help your clients separate facts from the story? Not what does it feel like, not what you were afraid of. What are the verifiable facts? So you could ask yourself right now, what are the verifiable facts about your business right now? Write them down. What's your inquiry volume been over the last 90 days? What's your conversion rate when you do have a conversation? Where have your clients come from historically? Do you need to shift that? What content or outreach has produced actual results versus anything that might be on your to-do list right now because you feel like you should do it? You're supposed to do it. When you have the facts in front of you, separated from the story your fear has been building about that, a couple things start to become clear. First, things probably aren't as bad as you thought they were. Fear has a tendency to make it seem super escalated, super bad, and you might realize, oh, things aren't as bad as I thought they were. I'll give you another example of something that you could do. Maybe your clients have not, maybe your newsletter subscribers have not been signing up for coaching with you or for programs with you the way they have in the past. But I want to ask you this. Have you ever actually looked at your subscribers in enough detail to see just how many people open every single email that you send out? I did this once during a downturn that I was experiencing. It was such a boost. I suddenly realized oh, okay, got it. At the time, there was a program that I was launching. This was years ago. And I, at the time, was thinking to myself, people must not be interested. And what I found was that a lot of people were actually opening and reading every single email I was sending out. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. People were, in fact, interested in what it was that I had to say. That also gave me some data. And I started to take action steps like pinging those people and saying, what are some things that are on your mind right now? What is it you're actually needing? It helped me to shape my offer in a different way. Second thing that might start to become clear to you is that you don't have total clarity and insight into the actual open rates, interest, clicks, because you haven't been tracking them. Yeah. Is somebody listening to this going, guilty as charged, Kate? I will just say it took me a really long time in my business, just to normalize this for you, to be accountable about tracking things. I was scared to track things because I was preemptively worried that if I tracked things, I'd feel really bad about not getting results. Now I am such a tracker. I have a quarterly business date with myself where I sit down and I go through all the metrics that I track, which are everything from visits to my website to page views on my website to key phrase rankings. It's like a whole thing that I sit down and do once a quarter. So if you are realizing, oh, I'm not tracking anything and that's why I don't have the clarity, it's time to start. And in fact, you probably have access to historical data already. Best time to start is now if you haven't been doing it. Third thing you might realize is that there can often be something that maybe you're not doing because you think that you're too busy, or you'd have to learn it, or the tech feels like some kind of experiment, some kind of new skill that you might need to learn that you haven't tried. So maybe I've been yapping this whole time about a newsletter, and maybe meanwhile you've only been on social media and you've never set up a newsletter because you felt like it would be too much, or you'd feel the pressure to have to put out a newsletter every week. Maybe it's time to get over that. Maybe it's time to go, okay, if I could net new clients every single month because once a week I sit down and I write something that's about 4 paragraphs long and just hit send, Is that really the worst trade-off in the world? It's uncomfortable if you aren't doing it, but it's a very doable thing. How bad do you want it? How bad do you want to have a life and a business that you love? How bad do you want to get away from the soul-sucking corporate job? How bad do you want to start paving the way to more economic freedom, even in this difficult economy? How bad do you want to do work that actually lights you up and makes it feels so good it's not even like it's work? How bad do you want it? That's a question you've got to ask yourself. Me, I'm good. I'm so good with deciding to experiment with things. If it is going to potentially teach me some new information, give me some new data. I mean, I will just say, for instance, this podcast you're listening to right now, it just started as an experiment mentally when I first started it. I was like, okay, it could be fun, but I was also intimidated about the tech and promoting it, and would I have enough things to say? And I had I had all that stuff come up. It was uncomfortable. But do you know how many people tell me when they join CLCC that they listen to the Craft of Coaching podcast? A lot of them. And so in addition to something that has actually become quite a joy to produce, I really love showing up here for you guys. I love hanging out with you in this way, even if we aren't doing it in real time. In addition to that, turns out, who knew, it ended up being something that has boosted enrollment for CLCC, which I think is awesome. Also, I find it as something of a service, because if you're listening to this podcast, you're getting a sense of what it's like to work with me, to work with us in CLCC. So, awesome. I love to give you more information about that program. Here's the next move that I want you to think about, okay? Identify one lever. Identify one lever, not 10, not 15 new things you could put on a roadmap, just one. Based on what you understand to be the thing that has been most successful for you in the past, what is the single thing that you could do that is most likely to produce more inquiries for you in the next 30 days? And for most coaches, this is some version of direct outreach. So you reach back out to people who expressed interest and went quiet, or you have some kind of conversation with someone in your network who might know potential clients. You might offer free sessions. You might start a webinar. Don't do a brand new offer. Don't do a rebrand. Just pick one direct relationship-based move. Maybe you're going to decide to start a podcast. Maybe you have a podcast you started that you have abandoned, and you're like, oh, I abandoned it because I wasn't getting super high listeners. Well, I'm here to tell you, the Craft of Coaching podcast is not like an Apple Podcast top 10 podcast, okay? But I meet some great people through it. And I have another podcast called the Your Courageous Life podcast. And it is also not in the top 10 for anything. But I've met some great people through it. All right, let's get into what actually builds equity in a slow season. So here's the reframe that changes how these times of economic uncertainty can feel and what you can do with them. When there is economic uncertainty, and if you feel like things are slowing down, it's not wasted time. Consider this an opportunity to build the infrastructure that you don't have time for in a busy season. The coaches who come out of a hard market stronger are almost always the ones who use the quiet time to deepen rather than to scramble. I got to tell you, one of my hardest years in my business actually was 2023 going into 2024. I had taken some time back from my business as a result of taking time back from my business. Like I wasn't checking email. I wasn't posting to social. I wasn't updating the podcast. Nothing. So guess what? Yeah, the momentum, the flywheel, all of the things that I do, none of that was happening. And therefore, there were not a lot of client inquiries going, right? Enrollment for CLCC was like pushing a boulder up the hill. That's so real. So what was I going to do? I had extra time on my hands. Well, I doubled down on SEO. I learned about video and Reels and TikTok. No kidding. That's what I did. I was like, okay, let me go clean up my website. I went back and I started cleaning up old episodes of this podcast where I had, was like, I don't know that I believe that thing that I talked about anymore. I think something has shifted, or I think something could go deeper, or I went back and I retitled some of my episodes because titles on a podcast episode are the thing most likely to draw someone in and have them go, I'd like to listen to this. So I went back and I said, okay, what does it look like practically to deepen? So what does it look like for you? Maybe it's time for you to deepen by getting serious about your content in a way that you couldn't when you were fully booked. Maybe it's time for you to revive that podcast like I talked about. Maybe you need to look at your email sequence again. Maybe you don't have email set up and you're like, oh, I need to do that. Maybe you want to look at ManyChat. Maybe you want to look at texting. These are things that have a compounding return. They are not necessarily going to produce a client tomorrow, but if you are consistent, they will start to get the flywheel moving more because you've built something that keeps working while you're doing other things. It can also look like investing in your own skill development. If you've ever been curious about CLCC, but you're already a coach and you're going, oh, well, they only train new coaches. First of all, we have a lot of people every year who have been through other coach training programs and feel a little bit like, I don't know that I learned how to coach in that program. And so they come to ours. Yay, we love you. Come on over. Also, we offer advanced training in somatic coaching, organizational and executive coaching, health and wellness coaching. So we have advanced courses that you can take. So you can take courses, you can deepen your training, you can look at a specific coaching competency, and this serves two purposes. It makes you genuinely better, and it also restores your sense of forward movement at a time when maybe you're feeling shaky. It also, to deepen practically, will look like nurturing existing relationships rather than only trying to find new clients. You might have past clients, you might have referral partners, you might have people who have followed your work for years. These are underutilized in slow seasons. This isn't about like go out and do like a spray and pray of sales pitches. I'm talking about just make genuine check-ins, wish people happy birthday, share a piece of content that made you think of them, stay in contact in a way that's warm and real, never performative, never transactional. And then powerfully, I think that when there's a difficult economy or when you're having a crisis of confidence, you get to do your own inner work. What is this slowdown bringing up for you? What's it going to look like for you to come out on the other side of this difficult economy? Again, I've been a coach since 2006. That's 20 years of coaching. I've seen peaks. I've seen valleys. I understand that this is a valley. I understand I'm going to see a peak again. I actually have a bet, and who knows when this will play out, but I'm betting, recording this in 2026, that AI is actually going to cannibalize things to such a degree that people are going to be hungry for true, actual humans. I just read an article yesterday. I was on LinkedIn, and it was all about how the companies that have laid people off the most to invest in AI are no more profitable than the companies who have not done that. AI is not paying off for companies the way they think it will. It ain't. And you know what's going to happen when companies realize like, oh, AI hallucinates and it doesn't do the work we think it's going to do, and it isn't as profitable as we thought it was, and it's actually not saving us a bunch of money. They're going to start bringing back humans. That's just my bet. Maybe you think I'm delusional. Maybe you think I'm hallucinating. I don't think I am. So the coaches who navigate this space the most skillfully are the ones who are going to use this as an opportunity. This is beyond a business problem. This is who am I and who do I want to be amid this economy? And that's what I want to get into next, translating this to your coaching work. Let's bring this into the coaching container because everything we've talked about today has a direct parallel in the work you're doing with clients. Your clients, even if they are not coaches, are certainly living at some point a version of, I'm doing everything right, nothing's happening, it feels so uncertain, I'm scared, maybe I suck. There's the job seeker who keeps applying. There's the person who's been doing all the personal development work and still feels stuck. You might have a client who's going through a difficult period in their marriage and they feel like nothing's changing. These clients are living in the same psychological territory that I've been describing. The silence feels like evidence. The gap between effort and outcome is eroding their belief in themselves. So it's the same process. Separate the facts from the story. Get as much data as you can to assess the actual landscape. Identify one thing you have control of rather than trying to overhaul everything. And find a way to invest in yourself even when things feel uncertain. Do the work that doesn't produce immediate results, but that will compound over time. The deepest piece of this for your clients and for you is learning to hold belief, even if the future is uncertain or things are ambiguous. And I'm not talking about magical thinking. I'm talking about a specific skill of being able to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty. And that skill, practiced consistently, is one of the most valuable things you can develop as a coach. It's one of the most valuable things you can support your clients around. And the fact that you're in a period that requires you to practice it yourself does not make you less of a coach. It makes you more of one. So here's what I want you to take away from today. Economic uncertainty is not the writing on the wall that you're going to fail. It's just a condition, and conditions change like the weather. What you do in the condition, whether you spiral, whether you scramble, whether you bail on yourself in your business, or whether you steady yourself, audit what you're doing, decide to double down and invest. That is what determines what's on the other side of it. And the next time a client sits across from you in their own version of this, where they're doing the work and they're not seeing the results and they start going, am I fooling myself? You will have something to offer them that goes beyond coaching technique. You will have the lived experience of having navigated it yourself. And that matters. That matters far more than most people will tell you. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.